where the light learned our names. Written for slow, emotional voice narration. Natural pauses, breath beats, and ambient moments are intentionally embedded. Mara Ellison learned how to disappear without leaving a room. She learned it young, how to soften her voice in the end of a sentence, how to listen longer than she spoke, how to fold herself into the background so completely that people mistook her quiet for peace. It wasn't that she lacked opinions or longing. It was that wanting felt dangerous, and she had learned to survive by not reaching too far for anything that could leave. On most evenings, Mara sat alone in her third-floor apartment, the one with the uneven floorboards and the window that caught the sunset like a held breath. The city below hummed, cars sighing at red lights, distant laughter rising and fading, and she told herself this was enough. Work paid the bills. Silence kept her safe. She edited other people's stories for a living, fixed endings, smoothed beginnings, helped strangers say what they meant. Her own notebook stayed mostly blank, until the rain-soaked Tuesday when everything shifted. The cafe on Linden Street smelled like burnt espresso and old paper, the kind of place that forgave you for staying too long. Mara chose the corner table by habit, set her notebook down, and watched the rain argue with the window. She told herself she was content to be an observer of the world. Then the bell above the door rang. She didn't look right away, but something changed. The air felt warmer, fuller, like a story had just begun without asking permission. When Mara lifted her eyes, she saw Eliza. Eliza stood just inside the doorway, rain clinging to her coat, curls damp and unruly around her face. She laughed at something the barista said, and the sound wasn't loud. It was honest. It carried the ease of someone who hadn't learned to apologize for existing. Their eyes met. Eliza smiled, not the polite kind, but the kind that lingered, curious and open. "Is anyone sitting there?" she asked, nodding toward the empty chair across from Mara. Mara shook her head. "No." Eliza sat, close enough for warmth, close enough to matter. "I'm Eliza." "Mara." Their hands met briefly in greeting. The contact was simple, grounding, and Mara noticed how long it took for her heartbeat to slow afterward. They talked the way people do when they don't yet know what they're becoming to each other. Carefully at first, then freely. Eliza had just moved to the city. She taught art to children who believed colors could tell the truth better than words. She spoke with her hands, laughed with her whole body, and listened as if she meant it. Mara admitted she edited manuscripts, that she wrote sometimes, that she rarely finished. "You should," Eliza said softly. "The world needs quiet voices too." Something in Mara loosened. They stayed until the rain softened into mist and the cafe emptied around them. When Eliza finally stood, reluctant, she wrote her number on a napkin and slid it across the table like a secret. "Soon," she said. Mara watched her leave and realized her hands were shaking. Soon became coffee again. Then dinners that stretched until the city lights flickered on one by one. Walks through neighborhoods neither of them knew well yet, learning streets the way you learn someone's laugh, by repetition and attention. They spoke about childhoods and fears, about the strange grief of becoming yourself later than expected, about loneliness that didn't disappear just because you were no longer alone. Mara noticed the changes quietly, how she began waking with anticipation, How her notebook filled with words that felt less like hiding. How Eliza's name settled into her chest like a promise. But love, real love, has weight. And Mara had learned to brace for loss before joy fully arrived. One evening, sitting on the floor of Mara's apartment, amid takeout containers and unfinished sentences, Eliza asked, "Do you ever feel like you're standing just outside your own life?" Mara didn't answer right away. "Yes," she whispered. "Every day." Eliza reached for her hand. The touch was gentle, patient, asking, not demanding. "You don't have to stay outside," Eliza said. The truth of it frightened Mara more than she expected. She pulled back, not because she didn't want Eliza, but because she did. The distance crept in quietly. Messages shortened. Laughter thinned. Eliza noticed. She tried. She waited. Until one day, she stopped. The silence was louder than any argument. Mara returned to the cafe on Linden Street alone, sat at the corner table, opened her notebook, and finally wrote what she had been avoiding. "I am afraid of being seen, and more afraid of being missed." She realized then that safety without connection wasn't peace. It was absence. She found Eliza at a small gallery, children's paintings lining the walls. Bright, messy, brave. Eliza stood in the center of it, explaining color to a group of parents, alive in a way Mara had missed desperately. When the room cleared, Eliza turned. "Mara!" "I'm sorry," Mara said. "I was afraid, and I don't want to live there anymore." Eliza's eyes shone, hurt and hope warring quietly. "You don't get to disappear when it's hard," Eliza said. "Not if you want to stay." "I do," Mara said. "I want to stay. I want to choose you, even when it scares me." The kiss that followed was careful, earned, certain. Love did not erase their fears, but it gave them courage. They built a life slowly, shared mornings, paint-stained hands, manuscripts finally finished. They learned how to argue without leaving, how to apologize without shrinking, how to hold each other through old wounds. Years later, rain fell again on Linden Street. Mara sat in the cafe beside Eliza, fingers intertwined. "Do you ever think about how close we came to missing this?" Eliza asked. Mara smiled. "Every day." Outside, the rain softened the world instead of blurring it. And for the first time, Mara knew she wasn't waiting anymore. She was home,